Hey there, Nick2Attack here. In this video, we're going to do a live coding style video where I'm going to open up a pull request against the documentation to the Terraform AWS EKS module. Now, if you're not using Terraform or Kubernetes, I still do think it will be worth it to watch this video because this video is focused on documentation. Basically, what my thought process would be going around contributing new docs to an existing open source project. So that's the general pattern here. And this came up very recently for me because this module here, they had a version 17 for a very long time, and they recently released version 18. And this came with a number of backwards incompatible changes here, and they actually have a dedicated upgrade guide. And, we're not going to focus that much on Terraform, but, we'll talk a little bit about Terraform here. But ultimately, the majority of this video is going to be just on, just organizing documentation or methods I would use in my mind to see how I should word stuff. But this upgrade guide here, very, very comprehensive, like a list of backwards incompatible changes, a whole bunch of stuff that was added, a whole bunch of stuff that was removed. And then down here, just like a migration guide of how you can use the module with the old stuff versus the new stuff. And I went through this guide very carefully, and one of the outputs that got removed and replaced with something else kind of threw me for a loop, and I was getting an error. I wasn't really sure how to solve it, and there was no example here in the upgrade guide. So what I ended up doing was I opened an issue here, and I just went through basically the motions of what information you would include in an issue here, right? So I had things like the description, I read through the upgrade guide, I was using this before, but, I've been trying to use a new one, but I wasn't really sure what to do. So I gave them the code snippet here to reproduce the problem. And, I'm glancing over because this stuff is not that important yet, but, I let them know, I was getting an error doing this other thing. And, here's like some of their example code that they had in their actual module outputs here. And I couldn't figure out what to do when it came to reading the attributes that I wanted to, which was specifically, the output, whatever the IAM role name for Fargate here. And he gave me some really great examples here of how to do this, right? One example is since Fargate profiles now is a map, which I didn't know at the time of making this issue here, you can just put whatever key that you want in here to get the one that you want to modify, or a set to here for the role, or you can do for each here and just go over all of them. And then for each one, you can set it here for all of your different Fargate profiles. And that's pretty cool. So I replied about that, thanking him. And I kind of wrote this in real time at the time when I make the video here. So there's like an edit here. Basically, long story short on this stuff, I figured out what I wanted to do. And once I understood the problem and the solution, I wanted to do my best here to contribute back to the project. So I was like, well, would it be worth it to add some examples to the upgrade guide or maybe even the docs? Happy to open up a PR to do so. And his gut instinct here was maybe not to add it because it's I totally get it where they just want to keep their documentation specific to their module and not general stuff that's basic Terraform understanding. And, I went on to say fair enough, but, I have some opinions here when it comes to things like upgrade guides. I don't know. I kind of feel for an upgrade guide, and again, personal opinion here, this is an isolated document that's not a part of their regular docs. So if I go back up to here, I'll go back down to here just so we can resume. But this upgrade to 18 thing, it's super isolated just to upgrading 17 to 18. It's not a part of their official docs. And if you're doing a big major update or upgrade, probably going to be, feeling a little bit uneasy about that one, right? Lots of unknowns. You might be under deadlines for some client work or employee work, whatever you're doing, a million things that you need to change. I feel it's really nice to have as much context as possible in an upgrade guide to make the process for the user who's updating to be as easy as possible, and also to cater towards someone who might not be a super mega ultra grand wizard Terraform expert. That's definitely not what I am, but at the same time, I know Terraform well enough to set up a multi-environment setup for a pretty decently sized organization running quite a few different things on AWS, like EKS, Rapid3, RDS, Elasticache, setting up IAM stuff, quite a lot of Terraform code. And I still got thrown off by that one issue here. So I basically wanted to say that kinda. And I don't know. He linked to some other documentation, in the README file that had a potential way to use a map in Terraform. But then I went on to say those links are totally nice to have references, but it's I never in a million years would have looked in the README file for an error I didn't have when I was upgrading. So basically, I just wanted to clarify. My suggestion was to basically just change the upgrade guide, basically throw in his 2 code examples there, summarize why things are done, and just go from there. But I also, funny enough, totally understand where they're coming from, right? When it comes to adding generic code, or sorry, generic things that aren't specific to the module, to their docs about the tool that, their module is for, like Terraform. Like, we went over this, actually, funny enough, in last week's video about command line tools, right? Where it comes down to context of like who is reading your actual README file. Like, you need to expect that they have some general knowledge beforehand. In this case, it's like you wouldn't include like a 4,000 word blog post, like really going over Fargate stuff in the module. Whereas like in the previous video from last week, we went over like, I wouldn't have a 4,000 word blog post in the README file of like, what yarn is or what NPM is and stuff like that. But yeah, I don't know. Eventually he came around to say here that he would be open to adding some details to the migration guide. And even further, he's going to add some additional details in a different place here. So I basically wrapped things up saying like, cool, tomorrow I'm going to make a PR. And then I figured, okay, wait, I'm making a PR on an open source project. Maybe it would be a good idea to just live code the whole thing. So that is where we're at here. I know it's already 5 minutes. Didn't get into it yet, but that's setting up the stage for everything here. So let's go through the motions now and create a PR to potentially improve these upgrade guide from 17 to 18. And that's going to start with forking this repo here. And we'll need to blur out a whole bunch of stuff down here because this is all organizations for client work and stuff. But I'm totally going to fork this to my personal account here. Then GitHub is going to do its thing here. I'm going to go disappear for a second, grab a drink. All right, and we're back, and this was forked successfully. So now it is time to start making some modifications. So the first thing we need to do here is I'm going to clone it to my dev box, and I like to go into my source temp directory here to clone stuff. This is going to be, dependent on what you want to do in your dev box, but my basic idea here is I'm going to clone this, make the modifications, open up the pull request. Hopefully the PR gets merged. And then I'll go back and delete this directory from my temp directory here. And I don't like to put it into my like root temp directory here because on a native Linux system, that temp directory is going to get blown out if you reboot. And I don't necessarily want this repo to go away. Now, I'm using WSL2 here and the temp directory doesn't get cleared out. But still, I think out of habit, I like to keep this in an area that I know is going to be persisted unless I actually explicitly delete it. So let's go into Terraform AWS here. I'll just make the branch after I make the modifications here. But what we want to do is just modify the upgrade guide here. And this is where I guess all the decisions start to being made. So let me first though go markdown preview here. And that's going to allow us to see a real-time preview of this file, very similarly styled to GitHub. I've done videos about this one in the past, how I configured Vim to do this. I'll throw a card. But here's the deal. So we have this whole big upgrade guide, and we need to figure out how are we going to make this better. And I don't know yet because that's why we're making the video. Like, I didn't give a ton of thought on how I'm going to do this, but I'm just skimming this here to find the removed outputs. And yeah, that's over here. So this removed output, this is the one that we were using previously that's no longer available. And the added outputs is this new Fargate profiles one. And well, I'm starting to look at this and I'm already seeing patterns of how they decide to do things. Of how they actually decide to like describe some of these, I guess, variables in this case. So it's a little bit interesting. I'm already seeing some inconsistencies, and I don't know if that was on purpose or an oversight, or maybe I'm reading too much into it. But, and this comes down to like styling. So when you're adding documentation to someone else's project, usually you want to use like terminology and styling that they use so things are more consistent or try to be consistent. But in this case, for the added variables, they're using like a past tense like added to allow users, or, added in place of this, or added to create this. But then if I scroll down a little bit more here to the other one, like some of these are wrapped in parentheses, but the other ones weren't wrapped in parentheses. So my thought process immediately is like, why are some of them wrapped in parentheses like that and the other ones aren't? And I understand the rename, we're going from the old going to the new, totally makes sense. But yeah. But going back to here, we have Fargate profiles is the new added output. And it seems like they're okay with having extra stuff after the variable or output that you have here. But I don't think we're going to be able to get by with just having a one-liner next to like here, because we need a real example of how to actually use it. We need that isolated somewhere that's just not going to fit on one line. So I don't think this is the spot to make our modification. I think it's probably going to be somewhere down here, but we've got a couple of decisions to make because we have this big, I don't know what it is in this file. Is it like an H2 or an H1 or something? Let's see. Yeah, we have an H2 upgrade migrations. Then we have before as an H3, and then we have, the code here. Now, for my locally versioned or my local markdown preview, it doesn't understand HCL syntax, so it looks a little bit ugly, I guess. But if we go to their guide, it should be colored up nicely. We can see, yeah, we have some syntax highlighting, and comments are nice and easy to see here. They're grayed out, but in our case, it's not. But it's not a big deal. It's not like due to a typo. It's just I don't have support for that locally. But this is where decision number 1 is made. So I don't think we can add our example here to this block, because this example, it's very specific to doing the migration from 17 to 18. And we have like the before example, and we're using the module, and here's like, all sorts of stuff you would do in version 17 if you're like only configuring this module here, right? Like your cluster name, or, what subnets, or whatever you want, right? And then for the after of the 18, it's just the same exact deal. Certain things like subnets became subnets IDs, whatever. Like I totally get having the before and after there is very useful. But in our case, using the actual Fargate profiles, we need to like create something that is not this module. So we need to create like another Terraform resource and then actually use the Fargate profiles in that. Now, if we go back to the issue from, why am I scrolling with the mouse wheel? If I go back to their repo here and go to the issue, we're going to copy paste some code basically. Then mine was very specific to this one use case of, just using Fluent bit here to basically attach a policy or an IAM role policy to a specific Fargate profile. And I think that's going to be way too specific about like the Fluent bit stuff, but the idea of attaching a policy to a specific Fargate profile, I think that is a good like general purpose use case of how to demonstrate using this. Because the first decision is like, do we want that to be the use case, or do we want the use case to be more like a reference guide where it's like, use case, like how to access Fargate profiles values or something like that. Like, I don't know, like whenever I'm reading, I don't read very many programming books, like how to learn Ruby or how to learn Python or something like that, because most of those books, they're just like, they're like an API reference almost, right? Like if you've ever taken my Flask course, it's very focused on like building something real. Like everything is focused on a feature, implement feature, or have problem, implement solution. Here's the feature, like here's how to do it. Here's a use case, here's how to do it. It's not like an API reference guide. Like I really don't like API reference guide documentation. It's very hard for me to follow. So I think even if you weren't doing something like attaching policy attachments with the Fargate profiles here, you would at least have a use case of how to actually use this thing. So if you had something else besides a policy attachment, you can just look at how it's being used here and apply it to your thing. So I'd rather optimize for like the case of having something more specific, because it like throws it together to be something real. So I think we're going to end up basically copy pasting his examples here and using that. But now the decision comes like, how do we do that? We can't add it to these code snippets here, but do we add it under upgrade migrations? I don't know, because this is like a very clear before example just for like migrating from 17, and then that other one is the 18 for the after. So I think we almost need probably our own completely different header, like a new H2 under this one. Okay, so if I go down to the bottom here, I don't know what's up. Yeah, I don't know. Vim is getting weirded out by some syntax highlighting, but okay. So maybe we can do upgrade use case examples, because that's what we're basically dealing with here. And my thought process here around use case examples, like using that wording, it sets us up for being able to do multiple examples. So we just have the one now, but maybe in the future, other people have different questions and they can add different usage examples as well. It's going to be up to the maintainers of the library of like what they want to do in that case. But second decision now is, how do we organize, like, how do we write out what the use case is and then the before and after? So I think we have a couple of choices here. We can do, write out the IAM, blah, 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 whatever, and then do like before 17x, and then we'll do after 18x like that. And the reason I'm using that terminology and formatting is because that's what they have here. So they have like the H3 there after 18x example. Now we can't make ours an H3 if we describe our use case above there. Alternatively, I mean, we could do the H3 like before 17x like this, and then what am I doing? After 18, but yeah, this is not going to work, because then you have to, your h4 is going to be the description of whatever the use case is, but then you're going to have it duplicated twice, and that's no. So immediately, I think we need to treat this like a hierarchy where it's like upgrade use case examples. There's the use case, there's the before, there's the after. Done. Okay. So what is the actual use case now? So going back to here, it is attaching an IAM role policy, I guess, to Fargate profile. So attaching an IAM role policy to a Fargate profile. Attaching an IAM role policy to a Fargate profile. Done. Okay. So what's the before? So the before is going to be this one up here. So let me grab that down here. What are we doing? Well, this is HCL, so I'm going to pop that in there. We can get rid of the old way that I was failing to do. We can see here, we don't need that because this is the before in the 17 version. So I can get rid of the comments there, bring that back to that. And I can also get rid of the depends on. I don't think I actually even need that in my own thing. I would like to get rid of the fluent bit EKS Fargate here and just change that to be default, because it's pretty common in the Terraform world to where, like, in your documentation, or if you just have one of these, then using the word default there is a really good idea. So let's go with default there twice and probably just even get rid of the new line there. So here is the before case, right? For attaching an IAM role policy to a Fargate profile. So before, what do we do? Well, there's our policy for default, and then we just reach in and grab the output that used to exist for this module here, and we're done. So now we need to do the after. And the after is a little more interesting because there's multiple afters, because we have the after of doing it for a specific profile or for all of them if you want to loop over them. So let's start with the more specific one, just for one, and we'll do our HCL. There we go. What do we want to do here? I'm going to use default there and just replace it. I've done videos about how I have Vim set up to do like find and replace stuff very quickly. Don't want to waste time in this video because we're already at almost 18 minutes. But let's change the secondary one to be something else, I guess default as well. Because you may have multiple Fargate profiles, not just the default. You can have some extra stuff for your applications and whatever else that you want to make. But we need to now figure out how do we include both of these examples in like a nice and friendly way. So one potential way would be to have one big code block, but then, you know, the second one down here in the same block, and then maybe use a comment or something to like separate them like that. But I don't know. When I look back to their examples of how they have things set up, you know, their before and after are separate code blocks. And I think that's just like more cleaner and glanceable. So maybe we can just do something like an or, and then go back to here, grab his second one, and then that's also HCL. Whoop. There we go, paste that in. And then this is gonna get changed to default, just like before. Wait, what? Oh, okay. So it looks like in his comment there, the module is listed there twice. So I got rid of that one. And also when it comes to formatting Terraform, if you run the Terraform format command, it actually will line up your equals to be, you know, nicely readable. But if you have an extra new line between stuff, then, you know, that formatting is specific to this. Like, you know, it's expected to see it like this instead of like that. But if this were moved down to this line, then it would be like that. But in this case, and, you know, I don't know what his reasonings were for separating these out into their own like visual groups, but I definitely do like to have for each in its own little like, you know, isolated world of white space. So now, yeah, I think now, to finish things up, we need to maybe add a little more context of what these things do. Because again, like if you are Grandmaster Terraform Wizard, you look at this and you're like, of course, but sort of kind of new to Terraform, maybe not like been using it a ton. It's nice to have this as like written out clearly of what this actually does. So this would be, you know, attach an IAM. Well, we don't need to say IAM role policy all formally because we have that as part of the hierarchy up here. So I think we can just go with saying, you know, attach the policy to a specific Fargate profile. And that loving specific, why? Because it's explicitly called out to be default. So why don't we just use the word default there? And now, you know, we're opening cans of worms everywhere because Now, if you're brand new to Terraform and you look at that, like maybe that's a little bit confusing because you have default here, default here, default here, default here. You may think like, does that default line in with that default? Like, can they be different? Because I definitely know when I was trying to learn Elixir, like the way variable scoping was, this has nothing to do with Terraform, by the way, like, yeah, it was very easy to get confused if you had shadowed variable names, but they were each like technically able to exist in their own world, but it was like very, very hard to trace the code, for me at least. But in this case, like using Terraform is such, or using default is such a Terraform standard that I don't know if we can get by with using a different like profile name instead of default. I mean, maybe example. I think example also works. I've seen that all over their docs, and I think that makes it a lot more clear on that these things are separate, even though like it's sort of basic that they are, but I don't think that's bad. Okay. So let's copy that here, bring that down here. But in this case, we're going to attach the policy to all Fargate profiles, and we actually get not lucky, but we don't need to worry about conflicting like variable things here. Yes. Now the question becomes, well, first of all, let's see what this looks like in our docs here. Upgrade use case examples, attaching an IAM role policy to a Fargate profile. By the way, I always read my documentation out loud multiple times usually. Usually helps to figure out like how to naturally word stuff. So here's the before. The before is we have this policy attachment. There's default. And this is how it used to work. Everything is good. There's the after, very similarly formatted to exactly how they did it here, except that it's a little bit smaller of a header because we have a bigger header here. So the after, we can attach the policy to an A example. No. And this is why I read things out loud. It's an example. And I'm sure you saw that way before me. Going back here, attach the policy to an example Fargate profile. Okay, so there is our policy attachment for default. There's the module, no doubles, EKS, Fargate profiles, example. That lines up, and there is how we do it. And there's the policy ARN, whatever. This is out of scope for what we need to include in the example. And it's very explicitly clear now that this is or if you want to do it another way, you can attach the policy to all Fargate profiles. We needs an S there. Perfect example of why you need to read it out loud. But in this case, yes, we have our role policy attachment, defaults, Fargate profiles, no doubles, everything is good with the for each, and then we each and the value of the IAM role name, and there is that. Everything is lined up here. Perfect. Now, are we done? No, but we're close. So we definitely don't need a period after that header. Definitely don't need a period after that header. Definitely don't need periods here, but do we need periods after the comments? And I know this is a very, very picky thing. Lots of people sometimes put them, sometimes they don't, but it's good to stick to whatever practices the maintainers of this library are doing. And I don't know what their standards are. I don't even know where we're going to look for that. Code comments, if I do a search for this, yeah, of course not, because it's in a markdown file. There's going to be a million of them. So, okay, no, we got lucky sort of. In the before, we have managed node groups, no comma, okay? Or no period, why am I saying comma? But this is fun. They have managed node groups with like a title case where the N is capitalized, the G is capitalized. But then worker groups here and the G isn't capitalized. The G is not capitalized. Why is not the G capitalized? I don't know. I'm just messing with anyone who's watching this. Yeah, Fargate, there is that. Well, I mean, I'm messing in the sense that like I understand inconsistencies happen in the real world, not calling anyone out here. But what does that mean for us? Well, I'm seeing a lot of cases here with no comments, and it's like 100% ratio of no comments, or my God, no periods. Why do I keep saying comments? But yeah, we're not going to add a period at the end here. But I think we're actually done here. I think we are good. So upgrade use case example. My throat is like collapsing for some reason. Yeah, upgrade use case examples. There we go. What do we do now? Well, now we need to actually, we need to create a new branch here. So let's check out, I don't know, let's call this one, well, I don't know how they like to name like branches like this, but let's call it docs, I don't know, 18x, well, let's go upgrade 18x guide. No, upgrade guide for 18x. Maybe that's better. Upgrade guide for, yeah, okay, that's fine. And then what do we want to do? Well, we want to do our git add p here. And what changed? Well, all of this changed here. And this gives us a good opportunity to like proofread again, potentially. But I'm going to proofread it when I'm actually making the PR. So in this case, let's do a git commit. And just so I'm not hiding anything, I'll make sure to do it here. It's just, what are we doing? So add use case examples. Is that how I want to name this commit? I know, like, naming commits also very important when it comes to doing work on other people's projects, because, you know, this happens, I don't want to say all the time, but some folks want to contribute back to my example Dockerized apps, and like they don't capitalize the first letter, or they use like adding or something, and you know, I always ask them to amend the commit and force push it up. But so add use case examples, is that what I want to say? Add use case examples. I think so. Like, we know we are in the context of like the upgrade guide. So yeah, okay. And then we're going to push this thing to the docs branch, push origin docs upgrade guide for 18x. And then we can see here, we can create a pull request by going right to here. So let me open that. I just control click that in my terminal. And alternatively though, if I didn't click that link, I could have went to my specific fork of where I have things set up here. Can I actually click that? Over here? No, I can't. Well, whatever. I'm trying to avoid so hard for typing in the URL. Do I have it like in my history? That'd be cool if I can just back to it. No? Well, whatever. Let's blur stuff out later. So if I actually go to my repos over here, then if you click it, there's going to be a nice little notification here, right? Saying that I can actually compare and create a pull request here. So if I didn't click that link in the terminal, alternatively, you can go to your fork and then click that, and that's going to lead us to the same spot. So I don't want the title of the PR, like at the GitHub level, to be add use case examples. And yeah, how do we want to label this one? First of all, are we all good here? Yeah, we want to merge that into master. So add use case examples. Let me actually go back to the code. And then for the upgrade use case examples. Did they use upgrade or update? Now I'm second guessing everything, my whole world. They used upgrade. Okay, cool. So we can see matching upgrade all around. Perfect. Okay. And you can see too, like the capital M there, I follow the same pattern as well as using capital use case examples, like very similar to that. Okay, add use case examples. So add use case examples to the 18x upgrade guide. Okay. Do I need to really fill all of these things out? How's this been tested? Well, I mean, I opened the markdown file using a, no, I mean, it's markdown. Like you can, no, I'm going to say NA on that one. Well, it's markdown documentation. I used, no, I don't know. I'm debating on whether or not I should include the details of like, yes, I use a live preview to like actually see the rendering of the markdown. I don't know. I'm just going to leave it as it's markdown documentation. So description, let's see. I should probably link to this one issue here. Okay. Description. What did I do? Well, I ran into a situation where I wasn't sure how to use the new Fargate profiles output. I ran into a situation where I wasn't sure how to use the new Fargate profiles output. Is it Fargate profiles? It is over there. Okay. So based on, I know, missing a space there. So based on, well, wait, they have motivation and context there. I mean, that is the description, sort of. I mean, describe your changes in detail. See, this is very important to read these things. So what I really did was, you know, added a specific example for using Fargate profiles. Sorry, it's hard to narrate like my actual thought process in real time for writing. For whatever reason, it's so much easier for me to narrate code than like actual writing. So added a specific example for using, added a specific before an after example. Yeah, okay. And that's that. And that goes away now. Motivation and context. What problem does it solve? Yeah, I ran into a situation where I wasn't sure how to use the new Fargate profile, but so based on that, we determined adding additional examples to the upgrade guide was worth it to make it easier for folks to upgrade from 17x to 18x. And I'm going to replace the we with actually his name. And yeah, I wasn't sure what it was offhand at the time of writing that. So I'm gonna mention him there, and then that goes away there. Oh, fix this open issue. Yeah, it's already linked. Cool. So breaking changes. None, I hope. Like adding some markdown. Shouldn't break anything, I hope. So do I want to make this PR? So here is like the real, all right, this is go time, making the PR. Let's proofread this one more time. Upgrade use case examples, attaching an IAM role policy to a Fargate profile before 17, after 18. There is the code. This is normal, default, spelled correctly. Role is the old one, EKS, Fargate _ IAM role name, good. After, attach the policy to an example Fargate profile. There's the policy attachment, default. We used example there, but we needed to. That is good, no doubles on the module. No doubles on the module there too. So this one, attach the policy to all Fargate profiles. There's the attachment, there is the for each, and then the each being used there with the value for the IAM role name. No extra lines, everything's consistently spaced. These are all things that I'm looking for here. The headers are all matched up to be, these are 4s, that's a 3, that's a 2. Attaching an IAM role policy to a Fargate role. Well, I have attaching there, but attach here. But I feel like that's like a natural language type of thing. Like, what are we doing? We're attaching an IAM role policy to a Fargate role. Whereas this one, it's like attach the policy to an example Fargate profile, or attach the policy, like, or attaching the policy. I wouldn't use attaching there. Yeah, all right. Yeah, my brain is so weirded out now. I can't even remember if I went over that before earlier in the video because we're at 32 minutes now. I don't know. We will see. But I think we're actually good on this one to, let's preview this first though. Added a specific, no, I'm going to go add, not added. So add a specific before and after example. This kills me that that's hanging off, but let's see. I ran into a situation where I wasn't sure how to use the new Fargate profiles output. So based on determined, well, now that I'm not using we, let's use and then I think that makes this look a little bit nicer too. No? Okay, well, okay. So based on I determined adding additional examples to the upgrade guides was worth it to make it easier for folks to upgrade from 17 to 18. Whatever, it's a PR description. If it's hanging there, it's not a big deal. Breaking changes, none. How's this been tested? It's markdown documentation. Allow edits by maintainers? Absolutely. So let's create the pull request on this one file, and then let's do it up. And that's it. Now at this point, we sit back, relax, and we wait. So it is a Saturday morning now, so I'm pretty sure folks aren't going to be replying to emails in 1 second, but that's basically the end of this video. That is the PR, you know, unless like they actually get merged or reviewed in 1 second. Wow, hold on. Really, validate PR title, pull request target. Okay, well, we're not done yet. What happened here? No release type found in pull request title, add use case examples to the 18x upgrade guide. Add a prefix to indicate what type of release this pull request corresponds to. Okay, well, now we're getting into no man's land. Okay, well, there's a prefix like CI and fix. So what are the prefixes that we should be potentially creating? I don't know. Is it in their like contributing guides over here? Nope, they don't have a contributing guide. So what about in the bottom of the README file? No. Okay, when in doubt, look at other examples. So there's 773 closed ones. So do they have like docs? Is docs a thing? Okay, docs is a thing. But is that what we want to do? Because docs is like it didn't get merged. Does that mean it's bad? That also didn't get, why are these? Okay, well, did it pass the check for that here? No, it got merged, feature. Okay, I'm still not 100% sold on should I use docs or capital. I mean, most of these look like they're lowercase, but okay, docs colon like that, done. Okay, so what am I doing now? Going back to, not the issue, going back to the broken PR, changing this title to be docs, add, actually I want to put the dot there. I didn't put it in the branch because yeah, I don't want to play around with dots in the branch name, but docs, add use case examples to the, that, okay. Now, is that gonna validate things? Like, let's see if this validates with a check mark. And we will potentially wrap things up, but let's see. In progress, check is started. Okay, perfect. So at this point, require someone to review it. The workflow needs to be approved by someone before CI run stuff. Totally makes sense. And then, things are blocked until someone reviews it. So that is basically that. That is X'd out there, but I wonder if I do a hard reload, is that going to get fixed? No. Well, yeah, there's nothing I can do until things get changed. But yeah, that's basically sort of a long video, but this is the efforts that I guess entail in contributing back to some projects that you might be using. Now, you might be thinking like, man, that was a lot of work to get things done. One, I'm narrating this whole thing on video. If I didn't make the video, this would have been probably 10 minutes max for everything. Also, I could have just chosen not to make the contribution at all. But I don't know, going back to this stuff, it's like, if this module didn't exist, the amount of effort I would have done to do all of that would have been substantially more than the 10 or 30 minutes it took to open the PR. So yeah, my thought process around open source is like, if I can contribute back to the things I'm doing, I'm going to take that opportunity and do that basically, not every single time, but like as much as I possibly can within reason, right? So yeah, with that said, by the time that you watch this video, maybe this PR is going to be closed. I'll leave a link to this one in the description. So if you like this video, please give it a thumbs up because it really helps. If you have any questions about any of this or my setup or whatever, let me know in the comments below. Thanks again for watching, and I will see you in the next video.